Hi there, and welcome to Real Estate Divas. I'm JERLEIGH Thompson with Texel Real Estate, and this is KRISTIN GERST, the lovely co-host KRISTIN GERST with Capricorn Mortgage. And today we are...
Did you turn on your mic back?
Do you have a mic pack?
I've got one back here.
It doesn't sound very good.
I'm like,
Take two.
Take two.
Take
Hang
two.
on.
Hey, Vaughn.
Do I need to change it out?
No.
Or do you need to, like, fiddle with it?
Maybe Ryan's going to come into here and help and be on camera.
I don't know why they're...
By the way, I'd love to give a shout out to Mr. Ryan Harper on
It's
his
birthday.
40th birthday.
So awesome.
It is awesome. Welcome to the club, sir.
Yeah, I'm not staying here long, but welcome to the club.
How much longer you got? Nobody would ever know this, by the way.
6 months.
6 months.
May. Yeah.
What are we doing?
I don't know.
It's going to be the end of the virus.
Yeah, going on a trip and avoiding anybody, not telling anybody. Telling as few people as possible. Although, now it's out there.
Yeah, it's out there.
Yeah. Okay. Hang on. Hang on.
No, I think the whole world's going to go nuts.
Uh-huh.
You know, what did we follow up Spanish flu with? The Roaring 20s.
Oh, true that, true that.
And now we're in the 20s again. I think the 20s are going to be awesome.
Oh, yeah, it is.
I know.
Redo.
It's a redo.
All right. This gets really...
You're going off camera?
I'm going off camera for this.
Wait.
I'm like, well, because I got to snake it through the back of my shirt, all that business.
I know.
Down the sleeve, around my bra. Something like that. There's a song. What?
Or was it on mute? Is that mic pack on mute?
Check that one. Check it. Check.
I don't know why this shit just stops working. Alright, talking to you?
All right. How about now? Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, I don't know yet.
Oh.
How do I go download that Betty White clip that got put up there?
I'm like, where is this going? Where?
Did you watch that little clip?
No.
That came out. It came out on Divas on Facebook.
Oh, really?
But it's like, yeah, because all of a sudden Brian's talking naughty things about Betty White.
What? What was that? What was I?
This was on Passing Notes on.
Passing. Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, you can't
Is that
say
why
that.
you asked me if I had seen any of it? Okay, then
like-
that makes sense.
I'm like, you can't say those things about Betty White. And he somehow I didn't even know this was there, but apparently, the add-on,
Yeah.
the little
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
the GIFs or GIFs,
trying to
whatever they're
figure this
called, that you can paste onto your little stories. He's got Betty White doing a dab. Dabbing out there. I'm like,
Who's doing Betty White, Dad?
didn't you have that on the story for?
I don't think so.
You didn't make this? Oh, there's a clip of you talking about naughty things with Betty White.
I saw that.
Yeah.
And then it's got Betty White down doing this dance. Down below it.
Interesting. I'm going to have to go check
Get
that
it.
out now. Mm-hmm. Well, she's a naughty girl.
Don't worry, I'll cut all this out.
Whenever, I mean, now it's posted, but anything on YouTube, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
No,
he'll
nobody's
go back
watching
and edit
anyway.
it.
I'll
Okay.
trim it all out.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
And will it go somewhere else?
Yes.
Yeah, well.
I can. Depends on what it
Okey-dokey.
is. Possibly, yes.
All right. So we want to start all over. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Starting shortly. All right.
Okay. Oh. Hi there, you guys, and welcome to Real Estate Divas. I'm JERLEIGH Thompson with Texel Real Estate, and I'm here with the lovely KRISTIN GERST with Capricorn Mortgage. And today we're talking about what's the difference between a broker and a realtor, and really what's the difference between different brokers. There's a ton of them out there. And so we're just going to kind of hit the highlights, the high points, how it relates to realtors, and then also how it relates to investors, because there's kind of two sides of that coin.
You know, I have to say that I know very little about how brokerages work, but I do know that there are good brokers and bad brokers and good realtors and bad realtors.
As we've said before, not all are created equal.
No.
That's for sure. So we'll just kind
They're
of,
all worthless.
hey now. And I'm sitting here thinking about what I was going to do for your birthday. Never mind. Never mind. Well, let's just go ahead and get to like what.
Just proving my point. Worthless.
So basically, what the difference is that all brokers have been realtors at some point in time. So, but not all agents are brokers.
And
You'll
that,
hear
that
people
law has
throw it
changed.
around.
Right? It used to be that you could be, it was a broker for 1 or 2, or a realtor for 1 or 2 years, and then you went and took your broker's exam and you became a broker. But now you have to be a realtor for a lot longer, don't you?
Well, yeah, everybody's like over the years, everybody's kind of, every state has upped the ante some. So it requires, just like it requires more education to become a realtor now than it did 20 years ago. You know, it's the same goes for being a broker. And as things get more creative, then you want the more experienced person in charge of other agents that are not so experienced, you know. So they require now, most states all require now like a certain amount of education, just like with realtors, but their brokers take a lot more classes than, you know, they have to surpass the realtor education in as far as hours and classes. And then they also have to be in business for a certain amount of years. You know, in Texas, it's 3 years, but that varies state to state. And then now they've added another nuance, which is you can't just have your license for 3 years, not do hardly any transactions. You know, 3 transactions, you take all the classes, and now you pass the test, and you're a broker. Well, we all know that doing is learning. It's not always the book work that makes you good at something.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's any industry.
And I'm, you know, and just speaking from the investor's side of it, you know, and I've actually taught realtors how to do certain aspects in real estate, especially on the creative side.
Yep.
But there are new things that I learn all the time.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're good at what you do, then, or trying to stay on top of things, then you are educating yourself on a regular basis. You know, that's the whole purpose of required continuing education. But you're right. I mean, I learn stuff all the time, you know, depending on how creative a transaction gets. And sometimes, like, depending on our topic or our guest, I'm learning something, you know. So that's kind of what they've implemented. Each state has implemented that you have to have so many transactions in that 3-year period. You can't just have gotten your realtor license, let it sit, and now you're going to go and take a test and have a broker's license. So those are the things that they've added on.
So it's not only time, but then they also say you have to do, is there a certain number that you have to do per month?
With each state is different because this is, you get licensed by your state, right? In Texas, we end up doing, it's a point system. So for a regular listing transaction, you get so many points. And all of your transactions have to add up to a certain amount of points in order for you to qualify for taking a broker's exam.
And you are also licensed in Colorado, correct?
Yes.
And in Colorado, is the point system higher or lower than what it is in Texas?
Well, so because I'm getting a reciprocating license, well, I say reciprocating. Texas doesn't reciprocate with anybody. So
that's because we're awesome.
Yeah, Texas and California, they're like, no, you come
you
here,
gotta do
you
your
start
own.
from scratch. But getting that license in Colorado, because I already had one, and they're kind of open to every state. So Colorado, you can go there and you can take their state exams, study for their course, there are certain required courses, and then study and pass that exam, and you can get a reciprocating, or not reciprocating, that's the wrong word, a correlating license. So if you're a realtor here, you can get a realtor license there, and broker.
So it would theoretically be very easy for you to be licensed in 49 states, especially if you started in Texas and or California.
Yeah, you got to get kind of creative, but yes, I mean, because like Colorado's open to everybody, but then Louisiana doesn't include Colorado, but they do include Arkansas. So if you got an Arkansas license. You know, I mean, like there are certain little nuances to each one. And like Georgia, if you're getting another license in Georgia, then you have to actually either rent or own property in Georgia.
Wow.
So there are, like I said, every
Wow.
state's a little bit different, but the requirements are more when you're a broker so that you can oversee newer and less experienced agents.
Okay.
So that's really the basis of the difference. You know, I've had to explain that a lot. People ask, well, you're a broker, what is that? And especially outside of the real estate world, nobody pays attention to that. Nobody freaking knows, you know?
So, and I know that a lot of us too, depending on what you're doing with your property, right? If you're going to be an investor and you're going in to pick a realtor to sell you a piece of property, you want to make sure that all your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, because when you go to sell that property,
It's important.
it's important that that transaction was done
Correctly. Yes.
And your realtor, if they're worth their salt, should also make sure that everything is right for closing and title and all of that.
Yeah, that's like your basics, right? You know, your basics is that you want to make sure that you know the contracts, you know how to negotiate the contracts, and then it's like, you know, you start thinking about what's most advantageous for my client. You know, those are your basics. But as far as what you want, what an investor wants in a realtor, really and truly, we're thinking about, or you should be thinking about, how experienced are they? Because an investor, y'all have some freaking crazy transactions, or they get super creative.
Or we're lazy is the wrong word, because we're not lazy, but I know for me,
Efficient.
fine, efficient.
We
you
like
know
to
when
delegate.
when I'm looking at property, like when I want to buy something,
Yeah.
you know, okay, let's be honest. I already know the property that I want to buy.
Yep.
I've driven by it. All I haven't done is walk the thing. But on paper, I want to buy that piece of property.
Yep.
So I don't want to haggle with anybody. You know, I'm like, just put this offer in.
Yeah.
Right. And
this
they're
is
like,
where I want to be.
they're like-
Somewhere in this range. Make it happen.
yeah, I also am like, I'll just go over and check it out. Just get me in the house or
Yep.
whatever. And they're like, no, I need to meet you over there and show it to you. Oh, and please sign this form of representation. And I'm like, get bent. I'm not signing anything.
Get in.
I'm like, you want to be my realtor? You want to show me a house? Cool.
Yeah.
I'm not freaking signing that piece of paper.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I get that as well. I don't ever make any of my clients, or especially my investors, sign a a buyer's agreement. But you do have to sign a, hey, this is the information about brokerage services. I do get paid at some point.
I don't work
if
for
I
free.
close on a house for you. So that, yes, I make
you
people
know what?
sign.
And fine.
Yeah.
But you know, you can also sign that at
Yeah, you can sign that.
time of contract.
You're really supposed to, by Trek standards, get it signed the moment you meet them.
Real quick, just a point to make. I think if you're a realtor or a broker or whoever, and you ask an investor, hey, sign this buyer's agreement, I think the investor's going to be like, oh, you've never worked with investors before.
Next.
I'm out.
Next.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that because if you read that agreement,
yeah.
it sounds like you are handcuffed to that realtor.
Yeah, even though really and truly all you have to do is send an email saying I no longer want to work with you. But the point is that as far as an investor goes, you want to pick a realtor that is experienced, because you might decide your end or your, you know, exit strategy might be a owner finance, or it might be that, you know, things get creative, and you need to have, as a realtor that specializes and works with investors, they need to know how those transactions work, and, you know, who are the vendors we should use. If you're a new investor, you're depending on that realtor to help you and guide you. Do you know of a lender that will do this one? Do you know, if I'm doing a fix and flip, do you have any contractors? You know, having those resources because you've been doing it for a while,
Right.
only makes that person, that's the reason you're paying them. So why get a newbie if you when there's so many to choose from, you really want somebody with experience.
And let me also, just because I'm going through this right now.
Yep.
And this is an investment property that's being sold. It's a rental.
Yep.
And the realtor is a friend of the owner. And she's looking at it because she only does retail sales. And so she came in and goes, "Oh, the whole thing needs to be repainted." And I'm like, that's about the dumbest thing I have ever heard. And I'm
Agreed.
like, it's so when you also have to know as a realtor, who are you dealing with? Who is, who's going to buy this? Is that the thing that's going to make or break that sale?
Yep.
Nobody's going to buy it because there's a few scuff marks on the
Or
wall.
wallpaper. There's I literally walked through some of these, wholesaler open houses, or even before wholesalers were a dime a dozen and on every corner.
Right.
That something hits the MLS or I get word of a property and all of a sudden there's a ton of people there and I'm listening to the realtor walk through with a client going, yeah, you can blow out this wall and you can do this and you can do this and then you'll list it somewhere around here. And I'm like, blowing out that wall just blew that budget.
Yeah.
And you're guiding these people into this transaction and you don't have a clue. So that's where picking the right realtor is so essential.
So, right. And so this realtor is bringing in now contractors to do these bids. And I guarantee you they're at retail prices, not at, and I'm like, and I already told.
She's calling Southern Painting and they're showing up with their van.
Yes, that's exactly who this is. And I'm like, okay, wait, I've got 2 painters. They're phenomenal. They're not too bad. He goes, well, what are your guys going to charge? And I'm not going to say it here, but, because I know that I get different prices than other people do. Yeah. And I'm like, he'll charge me around this. He goes, let's just go ahead and let her get those painting bids. He goes, 'cause I'm really curious to see. He goes, because I suspect she doesn't actually have
anyone
contractors that she works with. She's never done a rehab.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, probably.
Exactly. Which, again, that's the whole purpose. Like I'm saying, there's a reason to know your realtors and your brokers. And then the reason the broker comes in so handy is if that realtor isn't experienced, at least they can go to the broker who is experienced in that genre and ask, do you have a referral? Do you know anybody for this? Do you know, and they can pass on that knowledge and it makes them look good to their clients, but it makes them part of the transaction, not just somebody who is getting you to sign the paperwork and submitting the paperwork, Right. Bring something to the table. The difference in brokers when it comes to realtors that consider themselves investor realtors, you typically are not going to find those realtors with RE/MAX or with, the big box brokers, because those big box brokers don't like dealing with investment properties.
They don't.
They don't like it. They don't like it when a realtor decides to discount. It doesn't mean that they can't. It's just they're going to get a really hard time, especially if they're doing multiple transactions that are discounted.
So you and I have talked about this, and my opinion is I don't like to discount. And it's offered, and in some cases I'll accept it, but on the understanding that there will be no sign in the yard. We're going to use my lockbox, which is fine, and you're never going to go there and waste your time and show it because it's like an hour away.
Yep.
Fine, I'll take a discounted rate at that. If you feel that you need to give me this, but for me, and I know that I'm alone in this. Well, not alone. But the vast majority,
you're the minority.
I'm the minority.
Yeah.
I know how I used to feel, because I used to do, I don't have a license, obviously, but I would assign contracts for owner finance buyers because I had all of my own properties that I was owner financing. And then I was like, well, I've got all these buyers, but then I'm out of properties.
Yeah.
So let me reach out to all the other investors out there and go find some, and they'd be like, well, I'll do it, but, not for your regular fee. How about for like half your fee? And I'm like, why the hell would I bring this to you?
Yeah.
When I can bring it to this other property that I'm going to be making more on.
Yep.
And so that sticks in my head. I'm like.
And I get that. But whereas the difference with the realtor fee is the fact that our job is buyer driven. If I'm bringing a buyer to a transaction, it's because they've already seen it online. They know what they want. They want it in that area. They want, so yes, I'm bringing the buyer, but do I have exclusivity with that? Whereas you had a buyer's list looking for a certain type of,
Right.
Owner financing. Owner financing are not a dime a dozen. So if I'm bringing you a buyer,
Not right now.
not yeah, yeah,
Coming soon.
coming soon, yeah. But
What percentage of, and I think this would also be important and maybe would explain why so many realtors are willing to do it. If you can get your face on that sign in the front yard, what percentage of transactions will you also bring the buyer and get the back end 3% because you're the listing agent? They saw it online and they just called you.
yeah, that doesn't happen a lot.
It doesn't. Okay. So I thought maybe, if you've got a bunch of pocket buyers or something like that, you get the listing and then you're making 5%.
Yeah, it doesn't happen that often, and the reason is if a buyer's already looking, they've already they're already working with somebody, and so that person has said,
Hey, I want to go see this house, but they say it to that realtor. They get
Yes.
that realtor involved.
It's also It's also not 1992 anymore.
well, and
Well, what does that mean?
As in, you have social media,
You
you
have-
have
yeah.
the internet, you have Google.
But that's my point. I mean, we usually find the property first. Can I reach out? Can I reach out to that realtor who's listed it,
Well-
and then say, "Hey, yeah, I'm not going to work with anybody," and get a reduced price?
I mean, you can try, but the realtor's already agreed on, that's already been decided what they're going to get paid, whether they just get one side of it or both sides of it. So then negotiating
Maybe
hey,
they're going to do that. Maybe not.
maybe not, but then it's the idea of, well, do I want to use the same divorce attorney?
Right.
It kind of comes to that, and that's the way I try to explain it to people. Although investors who are savvy then will use, but that's because they know they do these transactions all day. So it's a little bit different when you're talking about an investor using somebody for the buy side who has also listed, because they know where they want that price to be. They're not going to do, more than that. But a buyer who is not as savvy, and this is the home they're going to move into,
They probably want to have their own realtor.
they want their own, yeah. So that doesn't, I'm not saying it never happens. It's happened to me a few times in the last 18 years, but it does not happen often.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I always thought, all right, well, that would be a reason why I would
Yep.
be okay with that.
Well, so now that we've kind of discussed the investor side, the broker's not near as important on the investor side of things, just because you're finding
If
out.
you've got an investor who knows what they're doing.
Yes. I mean, you still need a realtor. Like, the realtor's allowed to do that job just about any broker that they're. It's just a matter of how much they're going to push back. The big box brokers, you push back, and it's a constant. Smaller brokers, boutique brokers, brokers that specialize in investment properties, then they know this is going to be your business and you're going to run your business the way that you want to run your business. They just are there for the oversight.
And 16 years ago when I got started, I got lucky.
Yep.
Because my next door neighbor was this husband-wife realtor team. He did investor, she did retail, and it just worked out really well because I had somebody who specialized with investors.
Yep.
Helping me find even off-market stuff.
Well, and back then, that's what the realtor did, is try to find the off-market stuff. That's like pre-wholesaling. They were kind of doing their own
Their pocket
marketing and pocket deals, and you weren't required to put them on the MLS within a certain amount of time of getting that paperwork signed and all of that. And those rules have changed.
What are
So-
those rules now?
Well, I mean, those rules, you can still have a pocket listing, but there are certain restrictions on that because that's to guard from these larger brokerages hoarding certain properties and only trying to solicit them to within their office. So it excludes other smaller brokers. So to even the playing field, they're like, you can put it out there for, I forget how many, it's like 72 hours.
I just instantly got this image of like a brokerage being like boiler room. Guys, we got a new one. You only got 48 hours to move it. Get on the phones. Get your buyers now.
Yeah. Don't let Century 21 get this one or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
Was it like that?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the reason that all of these entities, the governing entities for real estate and for realtors and brokers put this out there of it's got to be listed and on the MLS within this amount of time, so everybody has fair access.
Wow.
To sell this property to a client. Yeah.
Wow.
And so now you see more and more smaller brokers to fit certain needs that are out there, right? A lot of that's investor needs. A lot of that's just agents feeling like, I don't want to keep paying you 30%. Why am I going to do that when you don't give me any leads? There's a lot of reasons why. And we can kind of break that down because really the broker matters a ton when it comes to the agent choosing a broker.
Right.
Because it's going to affect your money and how you do your business.
Okay, well, because I'd always heard that it was 30%, right? So 30% of whatever you make goes to your broker.
So if we start at the top, like the most well-known, across the nation and world, they have that name recognition, which is RE/MAX or Keller Williams or Century 21. Any of those are the big box brokers, and it's pretty standard that if you sign on with them, you're signing on, you're getting 30%, and you're giving them 30%, and there's typically like office fees, and now there's, supplies fees, you're gonna get charged for copies, it's kind of a nickel and dime, and then it caps out, and it can cap out at anywhere from $16,000, and then you go 100% for the rest of the year.
Nice.
And then it restarts, and you have to cap out again each and every year.
Once you've paid your broker $16,000.
Once you've paid them $16,000 out of that 30%, that doesn't mean that you're not going to stop paying that office fee or anything. They're still going to charge you all these other fees, but now you're not paying 30%. And I think EXP is somewhere around 16 something, 17,000 on up to, I've heard of like 22,000. Is where the cap is. But, it just varies broker to broker. And that was pretty much the standard for the most part. And then as you started seeing some of these other brokerages start popping up, they're offering different things to fit people's needs. So now it's either you can do a flat fee, which is attractive, because now I'm not giving you 30%. I make $10,000 and I'm forking over $3,000 every time. That's a hefty chunk. And I spent 2 months on this, deal. It gets, as you can imagine, it gets a little frustrating. But that big box, I think that really worked better whenever you had to go and pick up a book to show your clients, and it got refreshed every month of what's available. It wasn't MLS and immediate,
It wasn't like you could go to Zillow.
Exactly.
On your own. And that's what Zillow is good for, is seeing what's on the market now.
Yep. And that's the biggest difference is, now we've got social media, we've got everything's online, everything's cloud-based. So then what are you paying for? What I will say that the big box brokers offer, and which is very valuable, is the education for a newbie. If you're trying to get in there and you're learning, you came from a totally different field, they have all kinds of education. So those classes are there, but now everything's going online. Like there's YouTube videos for that. So
there's a YouTube video for everything.
Yeah. So the values kind of.
So I was just to say, so if advice to a new realtor when picking a brokerage, if they're brand new, maybe go invest all those
the 30% and the
all
fees.
All that stuff you wouldn't pay if you were like
seasoned. Yeah.
And just say, okay, look, you're paying your dues, learning the business. Once you have a knack for it, get the hell out and go to
and make as much as you can.
Yeah. Type thing.
A boutique.
Yeah, some sort of boutique, whatever fits your needs. Because, as we break it down, you'll see that there's difference even in those little boutique ones, But I agree. It's an investment in that education in that field, And I felt like I started with Keller Williams. I felt like it was worthy, you know. I was there my first 3-4 years, something like that. And I picked it because they had the most classes, it was important to me. But if you need hand holding, and as we all know, everybody has a different love language, right? So same thing goes whenever when you're in your profession, whatever profession that is. Either you like the money talks, or you like the accolades. You know, you get recognized at an awards ceremony. What is it that makes you stay motivated?
Right.
Could you also say, like, if your niche, if you know you want to be working with investors, maybe going to a Keller Williams or an EXP or whatever may be a waste of time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're starting to offer some education in that realm, but they really don't want to do it. They
Are you
make
talking about
plenty of money.
EXP?
Yeah.
Well, that one's weird on their fees as well, isn't it? That
one's
one's kind of like
different.
the pyramid scheme one.
Well,
I'm not going to call it a multi-level marketing thing.
Exactly. But
kind
it
of
is.
there, right?
It is to a certain degree. And the people who started EXP are kind of spun off of Keller Williams. So they started that, and then they started that with the multi-level. Whenever you're doing, what is it, membership? I forget what the different name is that is not an illegal transaction. Yeah. But
It's called pay for play. Just in case you wanted to know what it was called. It's
okay.
pay for play.
Okay. I think that's...
Are we allowed to say that on this show?
Yeah, sure. I am pretty sure we've said worse.
Nice.
But on that one, they're trying to develop,
I need higher dollar bills than just the low dollars.
Yeah,
If those were hundreds, we could talk.
right?
Noted.
Noted.
See you next Friday. But with the EXP model, I mean, it's an interesting model. I thought it was really interesting when they came out with it, because they're trying to hone in on that other streams of income. So you're recruiting, and you can make something off of all of your recruits. The more recruits you have, blah blah blah.
Which is a multi-level marketing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's just like doing essential oils or doing
Or selling knives.
Yeah,
Or
something.
Tupperware
Yeah.
back in the day.
Yeah, Avocare or whatever.
Right.
Pick one.
Amway.
Yeah.
No, so, and that was my, because a lot of people think that I have my realtor's license, which never, in 16 years, never got it, never wanted it, no desire ever.
Yep.
Do you know how many EXP presentations I have been tricked into going to?
I know.
And it pisses me off more than anything, where somebody goes, yeah, I've got this great opportunity, real estate, let's go talk about it.
5 minutes, 2 hours later.
I'm like, what are we talking? Why am I here? What are we talking about? And then I have to go, I'm not a licensed realtor.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so there, as you can tell, there are several big bucks. But if we go ahead and go away from that, let's say you're interested in investing, or you're an investor that decided, hey, I'm going to get my realtor's license. That way I can save money, when I go to list or flip or whatever the case may be, or I want that MLS access, or whatever your reasonings, because that happens a lot.
Oh, it
right?
does.
Well, then you don't want to go to a big box. You do not. Then you're wasting the money that you're trying to save. So you want to go to one of these smaller brokers, and these smaller brokers, one would be like a transaction broker. The transaction broker isn't charging you the 30% because they don't offer the award ceremonies and the social gatherings on a regular basis. They don't have the office that they're already going to charge you for,
Is there no office?
Or there's no office, or it's completely cloud-based. And then it's just a transaction for each, and it's a small transaction. Like with Texel, I do $300 flat fee for each transaction that they do.
I think also to be said about the brick and mortar offices themselves is they, a lot of times on purpose, will have the sexy office atmosphere. Whereas, in the investor
because
world,
they're trying to woo you.
Yeah,
they want you to come in.
It's like, look at that house we're in. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, most investors don't give a hoot.
Yep.
You like that?
A hoot?
Don't give a hoot.
Yeah. They don't care about their office because they care about their bank account. Whereas maybe one of these big box places, they need to have the show.
Absolutely.
Do you know that the best part of coronavirus and quarantine I don't have to be, because sometimes people like have shamed me for never having an office.
Yeah,
And now people kind of get it. I'm like, I don't want a leash. I don't want a place I have to go.
absolutely.
If I want to stay home all day in my pajamas and work on the couch, that's what I'm going to do. Or I can go out and take a meeting.
Exactly. And now that's kind of where the big box is kind of, the whole model is a little antiquated in the fact that, yeah, they're doing this sexy office, but everything's going cloud-based. Like you don't have to come to the office for anything. My clients never, even when I had an office, they never met me at the office. I met them at their house, or I met them in front of the house they want. You know, I mean, that's about the only time. Every once in a while, then, you know, obviously closings were at the title company. But, I mean, there's certain things, like title companies are even coming around, as we've seen during Corona, to where remote closings all day long.
In your last office was a so-called cool office because there was a studio attached.
Cool. Right.
But, again, if you're residential clients, they don't know anything about it. They don't care.
Yep.
And a lot of your investor clients, they don't care either because it's all about money.
Exactly. I mean, it's really about that bottom line. And so you're trying to figure out what best suits you. Whenever I was at I went to Keller Williams because I wanted that education. I felt like I needed that to have that confidence to talk to people. Well, then I ended up going with a commercial broker, and his office was sexy too, but I didn't have to pay him as much, on my transactions and stuff. Then everything started tanking and commercial got hit the worst. So out of commercial I went and back into residential, but it was a transaction broker. So I knew whenever I set up mine, I was like, this is what I want. I want everything to be pretty much cloud-based. I don't need an office. I know that I don't need an award of best sales of the month to make me stay motivated, because I'm motivated by what ends up in my bank account and the vacations I can take.
Absolutely.
Right? Like that's what gets me going. But it depends on what your motivation is and what that workspace love language is. Do I need the accolades? Do I need the show? Do I need the label? What is it? And so you've got the transaction broker that just does a flat fee. There's no office, there's none of these other peripheral things. It's just a flat fee. That's it. The next one would be a membership-based broker.
Okay.
And so that one gets a little more interesting in the sense that you're paying a membership on a monthly basis, whatever that membership might be. It's set, it's what you agree to, and if you do 50 transactions, you're only paying $300.
Is it $300 or is it $1,000?
It's whatever that broker decides. Whatever that broker decides and whatever you agree to, then it's that for the entire year.
So you know that if you're like a high volume.
If you're a high volume, that's a fantastic plan. If you're a high volume and you're like, going nuts out there, balls to the wall, just selling like crazy, that's way better than a transaction broker.
Well, what about when you're talking about, say, when you're talking about your $300 at Texel?
Mm-hmm.
What about things that are like, I know, I'm trying to compose my thoughts. I don't even know what that is. I'm like looking around.
Well, what's funny is we were just talking about how investors don't care. We have cheap offices, and it's just like,
yeah.
You always have a guy.
Don't you remember the last studio we were in though? There was like they were remodeling next door for a while, and we're like, what the hell is that?
This is Max Handyman. He's like, oh well, let's work on stuff now. He doesn't.
No, he doesn't. He's a nice guy. Anyways, so $300. What about when you're doing, because I've heard that, there were a lot of realtors, especially getting started, who would do leases. Is it $300 for any type of transaction?
No, like leases, because you don't get paid as much.
No.
There are some corporate leases that I've gotten paid as much as I would on a sale, right?
Right.
But for the most part, leases, you're not getting paid.
But I've heard some, a lot of realtors, like smart, savvy realtors that I respect. They go, no, my bread and butter's there. Yeah, okay, I've got to do 10 or 20 of them, but they're easy, they're fast, and nobody wants to do them because they think they're too small. But I'm doing so many in volume that that I get it.
I can see that to a certain degree. I mean, most realtors are not that interested in the
they
leases.
want the $1 million listing.
Well, that and typically people who are renting don't stay committed. Like you've shown them 5 houses and then, or 5 properties, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, on Saturday I went to an open house at this apartment complex and went ahead and signed. And you're like, what? I've
Yeah.
been showing you for a month. You know, and all you were showing for was, you know, to get maybe that $1,000. So for the transaction broker, it's usually a reduced transaction fee, anywhere from $50 to $150 to $200. It just
Okay.
depends.
All right.
You know, with Texel, we do $100 per lease. You know, I had a agent of mine do a lease, and it was a large lease. It was a commercial lease, and so the fee was a little bit more because it was a much trickier.
Right. If it's commercial
Yeah.
property, we're not talking about just a
But,
residential lease.
I mean, on that lease agreement, he ended up making like $15,000.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, so commercial leases, total different ballpark.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, any realtor watching this should really be looking at doing
Yeah.
commercial
That's
leases.
it. I mean, apartment complexes and rental units and stuff like that, not a ton of money, but commercial, there are people that make a good living off
All
of
right,
that.
so transactional, you're, you
yeah,
know,
I'm
if
transactional, or you've got the member.
the membership, which is interesting.
The membership is a really interesting take, and especially, like I said, if you do volume. If you're an investor and you're constantly flipping your own properties, you want membership based. You know, that's what you would be looking for because you already know what you're doing. You don't need a ton of guidance. You know, you just need a place to hang your license and go, hey, here's your money on a monthly. And I just did 5 transactions, and I did, instead of doing, you know, giving you $1,500, I gave you 3.
Right.
You know,
So it's good.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So that, and they do more. Both the transaction, any smaller broker typically does more stuff that's non-traditional. They allow you to do more of a non-traditional type of business.
And, you know, as an investor, that's something I saw, you know, especially right after 08, 09, you know, when everything was going subject to owner finance. And
Yep.
the majority of brokers out there said it was illegal.
Oh, yeah.
And you couldn't do
They
that.
still do. I still have this discussion with other brokers and agents all the time of it's not illegal. And then they thought wholesaling was illegal. And I had to explain it's not illegal. Like this is not, it's not. Now in some states it is. It's not all states, but in some states it is. And we talked about this as far as owner financing because I know in Georgia and I think in Florida, their governing body makes a form, has a contract for seller financing. Texas doesn't, but in other states,
Well,
they have one specific.
We have a seller financing addendum.
Yes, yes.
Texas does.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about contract, like the 1-to-4. It's just a seller financing contract. That's it.
Totally separate.
Totally separate.
Well, that's actually nice to know.
Yeah, it is nice. I mean, I wish Texas would go ahead and. I mean, the addendum's fine. It works fine, but you know.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't fill all of the blanks, and some stuff gets a little confusing when you're looking at that contract to go, you know, especially for somebody brand new in owner finance,
absolutely.
filling it out. But the amount of brokers that I have talked to who had a listing and then refused to let their seller even consider owner finance because, oh, this is under my brokerage and I'm not going to take the risk.
Yeah. Hey, Raheem. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I love it whenever I get like the little notes up there saying,
I know.
hey, I'm watching. And if y'all have any questions, if you're new to the business, investor or realtor, we're just trying to clarify a couple of things as far as the differences and what you should be looking for, you know?
Right. So is there any advice when you're dealing with a broker who tells their realtors that owner finance is illegal?
So really and truly, I would say I'm going to put that burden on one. If that is your broker and you hear that, then depending on what state you're in, look it up. You know, you can call those state governing bodies. Here it's TREC, and you call TREC and you ask them a question. You know, whatever question that is, they'll alert your broker that, hey, your agent so-and-so called us, asked us this question. But sometimes the broker doesn't even know. I know for a long time, whenever I had my license hanging with a broker, I'd call him and he just flat out saying, yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Well, why don't you call TREC? Let me know what they say.
So, and I'm just going to ask this because, I mean, obviously I do notes in a lot with owner finance and originating. So in the state of Texas, yes, it is illegal to do contract for deed.
Yes.
You cannot do that. You cannot make a contract and say, for 30 years, you're going to pay me X amount of dollars, and then I'm going to create a warranty deed and I'm going to transfer ownership to you. You cannot do that. Technically, you can't do rent for own for longer. Well, you can't do it for longer than 6 months. Also, there's loopholes, ways
well,
around
and there's
that.
verbiage, which we should do a total show on just the verbiage and
For
the
a
difference.
contract.
Yeah.
For a different contract in that. I agree. But is it, I mean, because you just said it's owner finance is not legal in all states. But I have to believe you can sell anything on terms. Are you talking about straight owner finance? Or are you talking about, say, selling something and wrapping around underlying finance?
So I can't speak to that because I'm not licensed in every state. So
Okay.
it would really kind of like we have
What about
our
Colorado?
nuances.
Colorado, it's legal.
Well, actually, one of my
Wait a minute. You're a real estate person doing a real estate stream on YouTube, and you're saying you can't speak to something? I thought you're supposed to immediately be the expert.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm an expert on certain subjects, but I can't say I'm not a broker in every state.
Ryan knows
so,
this.
Yeah.
I was just giving you credit for pointing out that you're not like, oh, I know everything.
I know everything.
Yeah,
Because I
what
know
state?
everything.
Yeah.
So in the state of Colorado, you're saying
So in the state of Colorado, now I haven't, because I don't have agents there and I do very few transactions there. You know, the intent was to get the license and then decide what I was going to do in Colorado. So I haven't taken a deep dive, but talking to my cousin who is a broker there, when we were first talking, we were actually talking about, that's how I found out that Georgia has their own seller financing forms or contracts, is because I was talking to another family member and they're like, hey, will you look this over? And immediately my cousin said, that's illegal. You can't do that. And I was like, that's not illegal. Like, it's not illegal. Well, it's illegal here.
is it though?
Exactly. Like you said, there's usually a workaround to everything that makes it legal.
Well, but you know, as soon as you are saying Colorado, how many times have I been presented to buy an owner finance note in Colorado?
Yep.
Never. Now, I'm not saying they don't exist. I have to imagine they exist everywhere.
Well, but maybe the verbiage is different. Just like you can't say it's a lease to own. It's not a lease to own. You know?
Right.
We
So cannot.
maybe the verbiage is different.
Well, and contract for deed is very, very common in different states. In fact, it's more common than actual straight owner finance, either deed of trust or a mortgage, depending on if you're in a judicial or non-judicial state. But man, I can't imagine being told that I have this, and I don't care what this thing is, be it a piece of property, be it a car, be it anything, that I'm going to say, hey, I'm not allowed to sell you this with a down payment and then a monthly payment for, sell it on terms.
Yep.
Whether it's a public or private sale.
Yeah. I know, I agree. I totally agree. I just think that what we're talking about is where this term and this is considered illegal, but really, if you call it this and use these forms, then
it is legal.
Then it is legal.
Right.
You know?
And there are legal ways to do these types of transactions.
State to
But
state.
it still shocks me that you're telling me that there are brokers out there in the state of Texas, which is,
Yep.
this state has been doing, the beginning of the 80s was really when owner financing had its heyday in the state of Texas. That's 40 years. Damn near 40 years.
And
You're talking about it.
You still have brokers saying, no, you can't do that.
I know.
Don't advise your client that because it's illegal.
Exactly. So, and that shocks me. And so, I'm always, but when you're talking to a realtor and, they're enamored with their broker.
Well, they're enamored with, but also what we're talking about is mainly retail transaction brokers and realtors. That's the reason they think that, because they're not educated in that realm. That's not something they do every day. It's not something that they end up coming in encounter with on a regular basis. And that speaks to the fact that when you're picking your agent and you're picking your broker, like, know what you want to do in real estate and what do you want out of that relationship,
I agree. No,
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And for me, I've got certain, selling a property for me is very important to pick the right realtor. But I actually do research to pick my realtor, where I will go down and I will scan to see who sold the most properties within a half mile of that.
Well, just like whenever we did that that show out in the boonies. You
Yes.
did that because you didn't want to touch it. And you got super lucky because she ended up having all of these vendors at her contractors at her fingertips.
And yeah, and then if she staged it, she had her like friend from high school
Yeah.
come and stage it. I didn't have to do anything. And then she had all of these pocket buyers. At the end of it, she goes, oh yeah, well, I showed them this house, but they didn't want that one. So then I'm going to show them yours. And that's a really good way if you've got somebody who's really entrenched in that neighborhood
Yep.
and is selling a bunch. Yeah, I find it's a good way. Just give them the listing to do it.
Absolutely.
But when I go and buy one, I have realtors all the time. They're like, hey, I've got this great house. Can I show it to you?
yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, let's go, we'll go
Let's
check it out.
go check it out. Yep.
Absolutely. But, but I also have some really great realtors that I work with on a regular basis. Hey, can you just make an offer on this for me?
Yeah. Well, and that's important. Like we've talked earlier, with investors, building those relationships with realtors can be very, very valuable. And then like we're talking now, just knowing the differences of each type of broker. If you're an agent or you're an investor getting your license, what do you want out of that?
Yes.
How many transactions are you doing? Because that'll help you decide who you're going to go with,
So as a realtor, when you're going and interviewing your broker, knowing if you want to be in retail or if you want to go more of the investor route, are there some really good questions to ask?
What I would suggest asking specifically is if you're interested in the investor side of things, like what do you offer? Am I allowed to do this type of transaction? Can you help guide me in these more creative transactions? What is it that you don't allow? Because there are brokers out there that won't allow you to they won't let you do both sides of the transaction. You're going to have to assign it to somebody else and collect a fee for that side, but they won't let you do both sides, the buy and the sell, because they want that client to have representation. And if you listed it, then you're not really representing the buyer.
Okay.
So there's all different kinds of ways to vet your broker, but you really need to kind of have that conversation with yourself.
For all of those realtors out there who are watching this and going, well, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you figure out that? How do you, I understand, yeah, you probably, as you did, you went for 3 or 4 years and went to Keller Williams.
Yep.
Got your education, kind of knew after that a little bit more
but
where
this
you want
isn't
to
really
go.
what I want. Yeah.
So I want to go switch up, and I know I want my fees to look like this.
Yep.
But yeah,
It's really having that conversation with yourself first, not just, I've got my realtor license, I'm going to go and I'm going to interview these 3 people and it's whoever I like best. It's not, have that conversation. Are you doing strictly retail? And you want to be able, is the phone call, being able to do phone duty at a big box broker, do you feel like that's going to bring you business and that's really important to you? Then you want to go with a big box because you're not going to find that at any of the smaller transaction broker or membership broker.
Right.
They don't have a call center that you can work. And really and truly, the call center isn't really a thing. It doesn't hold a lot of value like it used to because of the internet.
It used to, though, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
People fought over those shifts,
Really?
Yeah, the moment the new calendar came out, how many times can I write my name, in here and try to get this slot, this slot, this slot? Because people drove around and would call signs. But that was everything being up there in the cloud and just Google, Zillow, Realtor. Not to date myself, but
No, I agree. So it is. It's something that has changed a lot and I'm assuming is going to probably change even more.
Oh, absolutely.
Over the next 12.
Well, you and I have had this
months.
conversation, but I've also had this conversation with Ryan before, and when I was trying to set up what I wanted my brokerage to look like, I was really like, well, I feel like the big box is going to get phased out. I mean, there's value there, but
No dudes, right?
Yeah.
in your brokerage?
No dudes.
No
You have
dudes.
no dudes?
No, I do.
Okay, I was like,
That's the brokerage that I would want to go to.
where the male to female ratio was acceptable to you?
Yeah, it was 100%. It was 20 to 1.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the question he would be asking. You know, he's had that conversation with himself.
Well, and I think that's really good advice. Have a conversation with yourself and try to decide, what do you want?
What do you want your real estate career to look like, basically?
And I got to be honest, that flat fee is great. I'm kind of intrigued by that membership fee.
Yep.
But, just knowing me personally, there are so many brokers who are like, you absolutely need to get your real estate license. And I just want to ask that.
Yeah.
And I know this has been a topic before and a debate. As an investor, should investors get their real estate license?
Well, and like almost
I'm anti
every answer out there is, it depends. It depends on what you want. But really, do you want to? It's kind of like the whole, do you want to do all the painting in all your flips? Or you want to hire somebody to do it for you? Because you're going to go and find another flip.
This is exactly right.
So just hire somebody that already, and rather than learning a new trade.
Right.
Unless you're already savvy in the contract business and you want to negotiate, okay. But as far as, I know there for a while we did a whole show on it of realtors versus.
And I was the only one who wasn't a realtor.
Yeah. But that investors.
What was the show?
It was
That one that we did.
The one that you just completely interrupted her?
Well, no, it was.
No.
It was realtors. What is it?
No. It was. What was it? It was on Iron Hills.
Should investors become realtors?
I think it's a great question.
The yes and the no to that, like the perks and the downfalls. And some of the people that were trying to push back against it, because you hear that a lot with investors of, well, I don't want to get, because now I'm beholden to the state to do everything. And that's what the realtors were saying was, why would you not do everything to the T? Because you don't want to have any shady.
I gotta be honest.
on.
I ran in the Wild West of real estate pre 2014, pre Dodd-Frank. I loved it. So again, my opinion is that you don't need it. However, the amount of people who told me I did, usually brokers.
Yep.
They're like, oh, you'll park your license with me. And I'm like, and that's what? So I'm assigning all these contracts, and now I'm going to pay you 30%. So basically what you're telling me is, I'm going to go to school, take a bunch of tests, continue to do it, have to write on every contract that I'm a licensed realtor, and then you're going to take 30% of my money.
Well, and those aren't the only fees, because now you're also paying the state, and you're paying your MLS, and you're paying your board dues, and those are all on a quarterly or yearly basis, there's a lot of fees collected there. So yeah, I totally get it. I probably, especially now because there's so many sources out there, I probably wouldn't, as an investor, I wouldn't go get my broker's license or my real estate license.
And I agree with you. I think
But
pay
everybody's
somebody.
different.
Pay
Yeah.
somebody to do it. You don't need to do everything.
Yep.
You're not going to get in there. You're not going to rehab that whole house yourself. And if you think you are, you need to read some more books on how to be a profitable investor. Do what, stay in your lane and do what's right.
Yep.
And I hire and pay realtors. So what?
Yep.
It's the cost of doing business.
Exactly. But that's kind of the breakdown. It's pretty simple. A lot of people ask what are the differences, and so that's pretty much the differences in all of these different brokers. And there's variances and nuances in each one and what they offer. They all vary to a certain degree.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
For brokers, do you know of brokers who really have like a bare minimum of experience and really
Oh yeah, yeah, because
and don't know what they're doing?
yeah, they've been in the business 3 years. They have had the transactions.
Probably female.
You stop that business! I swear to God, you're looking for a beating after this show.
I know.
If it wasn't your birthday.
Birthday spankings are coming. They're going to be hard.
But yes, I don't think there's as many because, like I said, it seems like every few years they kind of up the ante of what you have to what you have to do to qualify for a broker's license. So it requires more and more experience. But I've met a ton of people in the
I'm sure it's
years
shocking.
I've been doing. I usually when you're in a transaction with a broker, I'm like, oh, okay, they know what they're doing, and then I'm like, no, they're a freaking idiot. How did you get your broker's license? But it happens. There's one there. It happens in every industry.
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. I know. I take a
Sorry.
bashing around here about the realtor and broker
I
business.
know, but I love
But
you. You're brilliant. I mean,
anyway, but if y'all have any questions, there are
Don't
little,
ask me, ask
little
Jill.
nuances to all of this. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. We'll come back through and answer the
will
questions.
come back through and
I'll
answer
come back
those
through
questions.
This one, this topic. Most of the time, it's an us thing. She'll tag me in case I didn't see it.
yeah, no, seriously, I don't know the intricate workings of a brokerage, but
Yeah.
I can recognize an intelligent, savvy, investor-centered realtor,
Yeah.
when I need one. So, and the ones that I work with, I love.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and anybody that's been doing it for a minute, if they're working with a realtor, they know a good realtor when they see it.
And pay your realtors. They offer you a discount. Say, I want to pay you your full 3%.
Yeah, make sure that person's me. No, I with my regular investors, I typically give a discount, but that's because they're special. Anyway, if y'all have any questions, then for sure reach out. I am JERLEIGH Thompson with Texel Real Estate.
And I am KRISTIN GERST with Capricorn Mortgage. Send me your owner finance mortgage notes, especially if you want to close them by New Year's. I need them like today. Also, check out my new group called Passing Notes. I am training investors on how to buy non-performing notes, get them reperforming, how to invest in notes in general. And basically, I'm looking to have an entire group of powerful millionaire note investors so that we can go offer as a consortium on all of these big pools of notes.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
It is.
Cheers.
Cheers to that.
And happy holidays, you guys.
Merry Christmas.
Yes. Bye.